And then she left, and that evening sent me the nastiest letter. She basically said, "You are not my mother."
Lily Caitler moved into her Abbotsford home 23 years ago. Since the Gangsters were homegrown boys next door, it's fitting that mothers would be the ones to fight back.
We had no concerns about crime. We used to leave our back patio door unlocked. And it was in the end of 2005 when things really changed drastically. This home here was a grow-up. The police busted that one evening.
And that's right next door to you.
Yes, and one guy was still in the house. He tried to escape out the backyard, and the police were just yelling and screaming. This was about 11:30 or 12 at night.
Lily and neighbors created the ultimate neighborhood watch, patrolling constantly and reporting drug activity to police, pushing for action. The community was beginning to stir.
We knew if we didn't do anything, we would lose our neighborhood for good.
After her son was killed in the Surrey 6 massacre, Eileen Mahan became the voice of the victims, a constant reminder that gang violence can take anyone. Eileen still goes home every day to the same apartment, right across the hall from where her son was murdered.
Life is just shattered. The only thing that is normal in my life is my job, because that's exactly what I was doing when Christopher died, and I continue to work. When his life was taken, I felt like my whole world crashed in front of me, and I know one day I'll meet him. But sometimes I feel it's a torture to live the way I'm living.
Eileen Mahan turns her grief into a crusade. And the community has finally had enough. Abbotsford police are now targeting the gangster next door. They've created a gang suppression unit that keeps the emergency response team busy.
We will be sliding up Queen Street. Both Alpha and Bravo and the K9 will be stopping short. There's a hedge line right here.
We're not going to just stand by and watch some group come in and start using violence and violent tactics to take over drug lines.
The new police chief had the advantage of coming to Abbotsford from Vancouver. So Bob Rich had experience with gangs and brought an outsider's perspective.
Last year, 11 people were murdered in Abbotsford. That's a very, very high number for a small city like this. We're involved.
The Bacons were boys who grew up in the high school. Everybody knew who they were, and all the other gang members that we're talking about. And it kind of happened, and it was there before people really recognized and wanted to face into how bad it had gotten.
Early in Rich's regime, Abbotsford police even had cameras mounted on the Bacon street.
There had already been a shooting there. One of the brothers had already been shot on the steps of that house, survived. And I drove up there and had a look at this as the new chief, and you know, a little 3-year-old kid runs out and waves at the police officer. I'm like, how am I going to protect that little boy? Like how are we going to ensure that he's not a crossfire victim?
Rich stepped into office just as the violence was reaching a crescendo throughout the Lower Mainland. 50 gangland slayings during his first year, and one of them took place at a shopping mall that caters to the wealthy West Side. The story ricocheted around the world. Now it really felt like nobody was safe.
Freaks me out because that's getting a little close to home.
Then, even more unnerving, the gangsters broke their own rules. Girlfriends were dying too.
Even by the brazen standards of recent shootings, this one was extreme. Police say the killing of a young woman in a car yesterday morning sets a new low.
One of the girls, I think, was the same age as our daughter. The other one was a bit older. We were absolutely terrified. I was glued to the news day after day.
Cut off from her daughter and desperate for news, Susan went on reporter Kim Boland's blog and found Wise Gal, another young woman from a middle-class family who'd somehow become a gangster girlfriend.
It wasn't a conscious decision to be like, hey, I want to date a gangster. It wasn't like that. It was kind of falling in love blindly.
Wise Gal became caught in a web of addictions to love, easy money, and power.
I had a factor of intimidation over other people because of the position that I was in and who I was with and who their friends were and stuff, right?
The final snare was drugs. Wise Gal went from A student to addict within months. But she didn't entirely lose herself. So when Susan reached out online, Wise Gal answered.
I wanted her to tell me how to relate to my daughter, how to get her back into a conversation with me. And her dominant advice was just love her.
Don't be too pushy. Don't try to talk her out of it. You know, tell her to get out, get out, get out. Don't tell her that because she needs to figure that out on her own.
Difficult advice to follow when you know your daughter and her boyfriend have been seen with guys like this. Red Scorpion Dennis Karbovanik.
Are you nervous about the prospect of being killed and needing his protection everywhere you go?
In April '09, DK entered a guilty plea to 3 counts of second-degree murder in the Surrey 6 bloodbath.
Dennis?
And the walls came tumbling down. That same day, 3 others were charged, including Jamie Bacon. Just weeks later, UN-linked gangsters were charged with conspiring to kill the Bacon brothers. And the entire Lower Mainland exhaled for the first time in 2.5 years. With Wise Gal's help, Susan and her daughter survived.
She waited for the right time and packed her car and drove home. And it was Christmas early, and it was just the most amazing thing, really. Can't put words to it. It was like being able to breathe again.
The relationship with Susan helped Wise Gal get free too.
In some ways, she was almost like a daughter, and I talked to her like that, and she would say to me, "You're so much like my mom." Neither of us choreographed it. I think it was meant to be that we met each other.
With the most violent offenders off the streets, Abbotsford police began concentrating on prevention, trying to take the shine off gang life.